What's the update from Cooper Road Mini? This is our friend Aaron's 1960 Mark I that we just put our super small bore engine into, nearing completion of the installation here, enough to test it. I thought I would get in here and give you a quick update. This took, of course, everything I do takes longer than one thinks to begin with. I've got a friend who's like, hey, I'll drive my car down and over the weekend we'll change the clutch and the primary gear. I'm like, yeah, maybe. Because, with these cars, and really any classic car, you're going to run into stuff. And running into stuff with one of these means, maybe having to get something from England or having to avoid a compromise with something you have that isn't that good. And, if you're going to bother working on one of these, it's just not worth putting it together as a compromise. So it takes what it takes. Plus here in Northern California, what can I say? We're having the kind of summer, it's like a dream summer in Britain from when I was a child. People are worried about global warming. It may be so, but there's going to be places that get wetter and cooler. And, I think we're in one of them. We've hardly seen temperatures in the 80s here in Northern California. What's today? This is near the end of June. And let's see, Sacramento is in the mid-70s. It's 66 degrees out here at around noon in Nevada City, California, as we get ready to fire up this little car. I am going to put race gas in it because it's got the kind of compression where it'll resist shutting off. And we'll give you a quick update on all the mods and what it took to get us here. Let's face it, one of the reasons we like minis, it doesn't take a lot of specialized equipment. It takes some patience. Thanks, Aaron, for putting the convenient tow hooks. Oh, try to ignore the flip-flops, sorry about that. But even while operating a phone, not too many cars, you just grab a hold of it and position it where you want to. Pressure washed the engine compartment. There's always oil and brake fluid and stuff stuck in that. And then did some very light touch-up painting where it was bare metal. We talked about how we couldn't get the belt off. This here, if we did a side-by-side comparison to the old one, is angled for extra clearance for the balancer so you can remove the belt. This is the correct modern engine mount that goes with, of course, the block we're familiar with here on the engine. So I've elected to install the new CV joints here. I've got it tilted up. As we all know, the Minis, when the engine's full of oil and you've got a bad seal, it's going to leak until it reaches that level. Indeed. When I build a lot of these engines, I'm not sure how long they're going to sit, and this stuff keeps the seals nice and soft. All right, so CV joint all the way in on both sides. I mentioned this has a little LSD unit, 376 final drive for the small engine. So as we go about assembling the motor mount area, here's a useful, if not exciting, detail. You'll run into this if you're swapping engine sizes and late and early mini bits. Here's the other one sitting here. We mentioned there was no clearance for the belt. This has the very common stamped steel, kind of the run-of-the-mill small bore mini motor mount that didn't have to have clearance for a damper. They just had a pulley, so there was room for this. When they went to the nicer engines in later years, and also with the following MG Metros, they used this style of mount with the aluminum block here, and then this unit here accepts the rubber motor mount and provides for a variety of radiator mounts. Good to know when you're swapping one of these. So much of working on a Mini is choosing the path of least resistance on a particular Mini. This one here, I've popped, of course, these CV joints in a number of ways. Usually you'll have the CV joint, the pot joint, installed on the axle and simply line them up to the seals. Now in this case I was full of oil. I wanted to install them first to make sure everything went well. And what I ran into here is I ended up putting the long side in first because it conveniently lined up. And I forgot that one gives you more leeway when you need to move the angle, because the longer axle, of course, allows the engine a number of locations to line up. So what I ended up doing, rather than fighting it or taking a CV joint off, is I simply undid the lower pin. And that's just one 9/16 lock nut and a couple of spacers in this case. This one has the Heim joint, the welded Heim joint lower adjustable arm. I haven't had to undo the tie rod. I just pried this out. I mean, you can see it's not heavily jacked. I could lift it up and pull it out still some more, but it was just enough. Pulling that axle out, oh, maybe 3/4 of an inch or so by tilting here, not breaking any ball joints, just the lower arm. And that, in this case, was the path of least resistance. Thank you very much, Little Mini.